In this video, we'll explore logic props from the movement and visual audio categories. These props let you control how players move through your room by defining where they start, how they can navigate, and what areas they can or can't reach. They also let you shape the look and atmosphere of your room using lighting, sound, environmental effects, and more. Your spawn point determines where players appear when they first load into the room. For co-op rooms, you can place multiple spawn points. Players will spawn sequentially based on the order you placed the spawn points in the room, looping back to the first one once all have been used. This means that if you place 2 spawn points, your team will be split evenly between them. This can be useful for parallel or co-op gameplay, where players start in separate areas and then must work together remotely. To see the order in which spawn points were placed, check the prop ID number at the top left of its properties panel. Within the spawn's properties, you can also set the player's walking speed and running speed for when they hold shift. You might want faster movement in large, open environments, or slower movement if players are starting in a confined area. The default speeds are 1 and 1.5. The teleport logic prop instantly moves a player or all players to a specified location when activated by an event. Just like the spawn point, you can also set the player's walking speed here. This allows you to adjust movement speed between areas of your room or even lock player movement. For example, teleporting a player to a teleport where the speed is set to 0 will freeze them, but still allow them to look around. Teleport them again to a different teleport with a speed of 1 to restore movement. By default, only the player who triggered the event which activated the teleport is teleported. Check Teleport All Players if you want the entire group to move together, especially when transitioning to the next area of your room. If this box is left unchecked and the teleport is triggered, co-op teammates may get stranded behind by the player that triggered the action. You can also choose whether to preserve the player's camera rotation when teleporting, handy for maintaining orientation or directing the player's view towards something specific. The ladder logic prop lets you define a spot where players can climb vertically. While you can always create ramps or stairs from the building menu, ladders provide a true vertical ascent, requiring deliberate player input. To climb a ladder, the player must look up towards its top, preventing them from accidentally climbing when simply walking past. To set up a ladder, add the ladder logic prop to your scene. Position the entry and exit points for the top and bottom of the ladder using the XYZ property fields in the Properties panel. Because the logic prop is invisible, add a visual ladder or climbable object, like a ladder model or similar prop, so players can easily recognize it as something they can climb. We've already covered how to make props into obstacles, but there's also a separate obstacle prop. This one exists purely to block player movement, useful for keeping players inside the intended gameplay area and preventing them from wandering off or getting stuck. Place invisible obstacles along boundaries, behind scenery, or anywhere you don't want players to go. Like prop obstacles, they'll block player movement even if they're fairly low to the ground. You can also move obstacles during gameplay. To do this, parent your obstacle to an empty prop that is set to be an animation. When you want to clear a path for the player, simply animate the obstacle out of the way via its empty. Note that obstacles are not active while moving, and an animated obstacle cannot push a player out of the way. Make sure your obstacles don't end their animation in the player's path or at their feet, or you risk trapping the player in place. The display logic prop lets you show an image from a sprite sheet on demand. A sprite sheet is a collection of images arranged in a grid. The display assigns each image a numerical value starting at 0, counting left to right and top to bottom. Every time the display's target lock receives a new numerical input, the display switches to the image that matches that number. This allows you to create dynamic images in your scene. We've used displays previously to show the current value of a lock, using it as a password monitor. But it's also great for things like a computer, where clicking on a 2D button from a list on the screen could display a different email. A composite image where multiple displays are layered on top of each other, and then dials or sliders change parts of the image independently. Even more simply, you can attach a display to a two-state system, such as a button set to tick that toggles between on and off, red and green, or locked and unlocked visuals, using the button's on-press and on-return actions set to 1 and 0. To set up a display, connect to a target lock. This can be a lock connected to a puzzle, or just a neutral lock used to route numbers through for the purposes of the display only. Select your sprite sheet. Tell the display how many images appear in your sprite sheet by setting the sprite sheet rows and columns properties, as well as padding if you want to eliminate borders and edges on the grid. Also choose how many images should display at once. For use as a password monitor, it's best to choose the same number of columns as you have indexes in your lock. So if you have a password with 3 indexes, choose 3 columns. For most other display and decorative purposes, like a TV screen, this would be 1 column and 1 row. Use player interactions, locks, or animated empties to send a value to the lock and display the corresponding image. For some tricks on creating a custom sprite sheet, see our prop materials video. The text logic prop lets you generate text directly on a flat surface, perfect for creating notes, signs, labels, or digital screens. Simply place the prop in your scene, then use the Properties panel to type your text and adjust its formatting. You can modify the font size, color, and alignment to match the look you're going for. Use the canvas size properties rather than the scale gizmo to resize your text prop, otherwise your text will be stretched. Once your text is ready, you can parent it to another object, such as a piece of paper or a computer monitor. For example, here I am typing a short message, changing its size and color, and placing it just above a monitor to make it appear as if it's part of the computer screen. The light logic prop governs the illumination of your scene. Each room comes pre-lit with 1 point light to illuminate the room. You can delete this if it doesn't suit your purpose or add more lights. There are 3 types of lights available. Directional light, which casts light infinitely in one direction, similar to sunlight reflecting off a flat surface. This is the most performance-heavy type, as it will hit every prop and surface in its path. Spotlight casts a cone of light like a flashlight or a stage spotlight. The spot angle controls the width of the cone. It maxes out at 180 degrees, where essentially it becomes a directional light with limited range. Point light casts light equally in all directions from a single point, like a light bulb. All 3 types share these key settings. Color, the hue of the light. Intensity, how bright the light appears. Range, how far the light reaches, which only applies to spot and point lights. You can also change the behavior of a light to animation to move during gameplay for added atmosphere or puzzle effects. Lights in Escape Simulator 2 cast real-time shadows, allowing for not only dynamic scenes, but creative puzzle designs, such as aligning objects to cast specific shadows on a wall. You can dim the shadows if they are too stark, using the Shadow Dimmer slider. Be careful with using too many overlapping lights. Each light that hits a surface adds to the rendering workload, as the game must calculate reflections and shadows for each one. When multiple lights shine on the same prop, the system processes each light's reflections separately, which can cause lag or slow down loading. To keep performance smooth, use only as many lights as needed and keep their ranges tight to avoid unnecessary overlap. Here in this example, there are 2 lights shining on a prop. Because the range is large, each light hits the prop on multiple overlapping faces. By reducing the range and slightly increasing intensity, I can keep the same look while cutting the lighting calculations nearly in half. The water prop shows a fluid animation localized to a specific area. You can define the shape as a circle or a square, making it ideal for pools, ponds, fountains, or any contained body of water. Control its position directly in the editor with the gizmo. Because it's a prop, it can then be animated via an empty parent to move up or down during gameplay, allowing for interactive elements like rising pools or filling basins. Play with the speed and chaos sliders to find a setting to your liking. While you have control over water and refraction color, the general color will mostly be defined by the surface underneath the water or by placing a light on top. The sound logic is used to control all ambient music, sound cues, and player footsteps within your room. Start by selecting the sound you'd like to use by clicking on the Asset Target icon. You can then select a preset sound from the library or upload your own. The room editor supports MP3, OGG, WAV, and AIFF formats, but MP3 or OGG are recommended since they're compressed and help keep your room's file size small. There are 3 different sound types to choose from. Music plays automatically on a loop and is exclusive, which means activating another music sound will stop the previous one, which is perfect for background music. Just a note that players have separate audio settings for sound and music. Many players, especially streamers, prefer to turn off music while keeping sound effects enabled, so be sure not to make any essential audio cues music. Sound effect, which is for all general sounds in the room. Sound effects will overlap when triggered again. Enable loopable to repeat a sound continuously. Triggering it again will stop the loop. This is great for things like machinery hums or flickering torches or alarms. Footsteps lets you change the player's footstep sound as they move across different surfaces. Use triggers to switch between footsteps for different surfaces, like wooden planks, or tiles, or gravel. Make sure to set this sound to apply only to the local player, so other players aren't affected. Some additional settings: volume, which adjusts how loud the sound plays, 2D versus 3D. 2D sounds play equally in both ears, so it's unaffected by distance. 3D sounds are spatial, meaning players can locate them in the room based on direction and proximity. You also have some fall-off options. This controls how quickly 3D sounds fade with distance as the player walks away from them. Choose between linear, natural, or smooth fall-off. The near distance determines how close the player needs to be for the sound to play at full volume. Far distance sets the point where the sound stops fading away. Be sure to set both distances higher than 0. If either is set to 0, the player will always be considered too far away to hear the sound, and it will be silent. Active on Start plays the sound immediately when the level begins, which is useful for things like background ambiance or music. Note that only custom sounds will have 3D options like loopable and fall-off distance. That's because preset sounds are 2D by default. Sounds set as music are also always 2D. You can trigger sounds through buttons, locks, triggers, or animations. For instance, playing a sound when a door opens or when a player activates a switch. Layering ambient looping sounds like wind, dripping water, or chirping birds adds depth and immersion to your level. Likewise, providing audio feedback for interactions like pressing buttons or solving puzzles helps the environment feel responsive and alive. The following visual and audio logic props control the overall look and atmosphere of your room. Each of these can be set to affect all players or only the local player, meaning only the player who activated the logic will see the change. Other players in the session will not be affected. Only one of these logics per type can be active at a time. To turn one off, simply activate another of the same type that's set to the default or neutral settings. Remember to check the box for active on start or connect it to the setup prop if you want this to be the default or starting logic for your room. Because only one can be active at a time, these props include transition time settings, which define how long it takes to crossfade between two states. Keep in mind that while these props control visual or audio effects, they are not influenced by activator props to enable or disable them. To preview the effects while you work in the editor, check the box to make the prop active on start, which will keep it active while you work. For some intense changes to the look of your room, like darkness for night or an underwater level, you might want to turn this option off while you work for better visibility. The Skybox logic defines the backdrop that surrounds your level. It can represent an outdoor sky or even abstract surroundings for stylized rooms. You can choose from 3 main modes. Procedural generates a sky based on simple color and gradient options, such as sky tint, horizon, and ground color. Great for quick stylized setups. 6-sided uses preset textures, one for each face of a cube, to create outdoor or nighttime environments. Physically based. These are dynamic skyboxes that respond to a directional light, assigning it as the sun. This allows you to align and animate the sun's position in the sky. Only one directional light can be active in the room for physically based skyboxes to work. The color of the directional light, clouds, and fog combined largely defines the look of the skybox. For example, add a physically based skybox to your room. Set the skybox to active on start to preview it as you adjust other settings in the room editor. Add a directional light. See how the color and intensity of my directional light affects the color of my sky. Rotate and position the light low in the sky for sunrise or sunset. Set the light to an animation if you want to animate below the horizon over time. Return to the skybox now with the other logics in place. You can control the haziness of the sky with the aerosol density or the intensity of the color with the alpha multiplier. Let's add clouds to our physically based skybox. Clouds bring the sky to life and let you control their look and motion. Add the cloud prop, adjust the opacity of each cloud type, choose tint and exposure, and add wind if they should animate over time. You can use this to create anything from a bright, breezy day to a dramatic, stormy sky. Use clouds along with your skybox and directional light to create the perfect mood and setting. Fog adds a misty layer to your level. Control the thickness of the fog with attenuation, the distance from the player that the fog extends, the height the fog extends to, and whether the fog should be volumetric. You can create anything from a soft, atmospheric haze to a thick, eerie mist that obscures visibility. The ocean logic creates a dynamic, animated water surface that spans your entire level space. This is ideal for levels set near a lake or sea, or for more dramatic setups, like a sinking ship. The ocean logic includes several properties for fine-tuning the look and behavior of your water. Distant wind size, chaos and speed, amplitude modifier and ripple speed, all add variation to the wave pattern. Higher values make the surface more turbulent and stormy. Water and refraction color, as well as ambient intensity, adjust both the base hue of the water and also how the water interacts with light. To simulate water slowly rising over time, start with one ocean logic active at level start, then activate a second ocean logic with a higher water level. Use the transition time setting to control how long it takes for the water to rise between the two levels. The post-processing logic lets you apply visual filters and effects to change the overall tone and atmosphere of your level. You can adjust parameters like exposure, contrast, saturation, grain, ambient occlusion, and bloom to achieve anything from subtle mood shifts to dramatic cinematic effects. Experiment with these sliders. They can completely transform the feel of your environment. Raise saturation and brightness for a colorful, playful space. Lower exposure and desaturate colors for an eerie, abandoned look. Add bloom and a hue shift for dreamy or surreal aesthetics. Add grain and remove saturation for a black and white VHS effect. Add a green tint and high bloom for a radioactive or sci-fi meltdown scene. That's it for this video on Logic 2 controlling environments. We'll see you in the next video.